Domo domo, what is up everybody? Official Jujutsu Kaisen translator Steady here. Welcome back to the Manga Lounge, Jujutsu Kaisen edition. So we got a lot to unpack for today's chapter, chapter 111, the Shibuya incident part 29 now. So it's kind of makes you wonder, I'm absolutely loving this. I'm not saying that it's going on too long or anything, but curious how long this Shibuya incident part something is gonna go. I'd say it probably, I mean, in terms of where we're at and just kind of the story flow right now, I don't see it any less than part 40 if I'm honest, but maybe that's just me. What do you guys think? Place your bets. How long do you think the Shibuya incident is gonna go? But anyways, for today's chapter, we've got Toji doing his thing, Naobito's crazy power. I'll definitely be explaining that a little bit more. Hopefully clear up a couple of stuff with that. And obviously we have the last few pages, some serious cliffhangers. Things are getting very, very real now. So yeah, without further ado, hope you got a drink ready. I got my water ready here. So grab a seat and here we go. Chapter 111 incoming. So we're immediately treated to this awesome color page here. We got father and son reunited at last, and we even have a divine dog and the storage worm in the background. I want to call it the Doraemon pocket worm. If you know Doraemon and just kind of like the endless pit of storage that it has, kind of reminds me of that. So maybe the Doraemon pocket worm. But anyways, cool little page here, and it's definitely become apparent in the last couple of chapters that neither one recognizes each other. I mean, obviously Toji is kind of just in a different headspace right now, but Megumi certainly doesn't recognize Toji, which is very interesting. And like I mentioned in the last chapter, it's not like he would. It's like, Dad, you know, he hasn't seen this guy for such a long time, and you know, as the reader, we're like, they look exactly alike, but that's not how it works in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, right? But we head into the chapter. We left last chapter with Toji, you know, pole vaulting and then stabbing Dagon in the head here, and just the brutal reality. Page 3. We even see Dagon, like, you know, he's got his fangs out now. He's like, it's not over, and then boom, Toji just finishes off the job like a true professional. And of course, the serious fans out there might recognize Toji doing his thing. Kind of reminds you of his fight against Gojo when he used the inverted spear of heaven. So I kind of like the imagery there as well. Very, very cool. And then we move on to page 4. The domain, the bubble, just it bursts now, and Megumi certainly running on empty, and Nanami obviously always being the professional as well. He's like, okay, that's one problem done. Now we got a bigger problem possibly even. And then just this image here on page 5 of Toji just, you know, looking absolutely maniacal with this bloody, you know, playful cloud now. It's just a sharpened pole at this point. And you know, the whole, is he on our side? Of course not. Toji's on no one's side. He's only looking out for number 1 himself. And page 6, we move on. I love this. You know, we're reminded obviously again of the whole idea that now Toji is just fighting on complete instinct, and he's always got his fangs bared, right? Baring his fangs at the strongest around. And I love the way that this is paneled here. Akutami Sensei gives us a little moment, you know, kind of spreads the cards out onto the table with the four characters here. And then with this glass, you know, shattering, and, you know, we can surmise that Toji went for someone. But just the way that it's paneled here gives us a little moment before we flip the page to say, who is it? You know, we can kind of guess in our heads. And then boom, as soon as we open the next page, we have Megumi here, of course, very, very surprised. I mean, he doesn't know that Toji recognized him as the strongest, but he's just completely caught off guard. And even comments the fact that Toji might even be faster than that time. You know, that time referring to very early in the series when he fought against Sukuna. So that's some high praise right there. But of course, we're also reminded immediately how Megumi doesn't recognize Toji. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what the dynamic there is, right? But it's crazy. That means that Toji recognizes Megumi as the strongest of the four. I mean, you know, you kind of think, well, is it Naobito? Of course, it doesn't really play into the drama, so to speak, right? The drama would be if it's father and son. But still, it's a surprise nonetheless. Definitely kind of caught me off guard. I thought maybe it would be like a knockout Naobito and then go for Nanami and then maybe Megumi or something like that. But nope, immediately recognizes Megumi as the strongest around. Then we shift right back into the station and Maki, you know, wondering what the hell happened. And then boom, we see Jogo just coming out of nowhere. And again, I like the reality check here, right? It's so easy as the reader to kind of fall into this false sense of security. You know, Jogo almost becomes kind of cute after a while. You know, it's so funny how that works. You know, we've seen him just kind of enjoying smoking in the mountains, hanging out near the bath with the other cursed spirits, and it's like, oh, he's kind of cute, and it's so funny. But you know, and not only that, but we also, it's like, oh, how strong is he really? Since the fight that we saw was him against Gojo, and Gojo just makes it look like child's play, you know. So we kind of really start like getting a very skewed perspective on what Jogo is all about. But it's crazy, you know. Besides Gojo, everyone else recognizes him as this completely different tier, right? Even Naobito and Nanami are just like, this guy is bad news. And obviously we move into page 10 here, and I just love how clean it is and just brutally honest. You know, we have Jogo just, you can almost picture it in your head, right? Just kind of everything just goes silent, and before you know it kind of situation. Boom. Jogo right onto Nanami before Nanami even knows what happened. Boom. That's one. And then Maki can't even finish it off saying Nanami before, boom, that's two. It's intense. It's just like all of a sudden this struggle against Dagon and just kind of multiple chapters is just over in one page. 2 characters done. And then Naobito, we finally kind of get the little bit of a detailed explanation here on what Naobito is all about. And believe me, if you're a little bit confused as to what's going on, you're not the only one. I had to give it a few reads too, but also this is a good chance to maybe kind of remind, and I have to remind myself about this as well. But the great thing about Jujutsu Kaisen and kind of its battle systems and kind of the more intricacies is the fact that it's a little bit more subtle with its explanations. I really like that, because sometimes with Shonen Jump series, you know, you get explanations that are a little bit too much on the nose and kind of just explain everything, and all of a sudden the mystique is gone, right? And of course, it's sometimes it's hard to kind of keep up, and you get confused, and you're like, well, I don't know what that power is supposed to mean. Like, what is Gojo's 6 eyes all about? Like, and it's intentional. I think Akutami Sensei definitely kind of peels the layers off of the onion one by one, so to speak, leaves a little bit of the mystery, lets the kind of reader stay invested, right? If you reveal everything about the mystery, then it's not fun anymore. So I like how it's a little bit more subtle at times. But when it comes to Naobito's power, projection sorcery, so as many of us thought, it definitely has to do with this kind of film or animation kind of quality. So what he's able to do, I'm going to try my best here, is he's able to, within his field of view here specifically referring to the human's field of view, and then angle of view is a term typically used in like film and cameras and photography as it's otherwise known, kind of representing the field of view within a camera or film. And although angle of view is oftentimes interchangeable with field of view, Akutami Sensei explanation definitely kind of differentiated this by using field of view as well as angle of view. But either way, what Naobito's able to do is he's able to make a set of predetermined movements of a 1 second duration within his field of view. Really easy explanation. Point A to point B, he has to split those up into 24 frames, but he can predetermine this route from point A to point B, with the condition being he has to split it up into 24 frames, and he's required to follow through with those movements, otherwise he freezes. So he's able to predetermine a set of moves and he's able to trace it. And while that technique is activated, anything that Naobito touches with his palm, remember we thought that maybe he like actively puts them into a frame, but it seems that what's actually happening is that Naobito, when he touches someone with the palm, he kind of forcibly forcibly requires the person or whomever to be touched, that was touched by the palm, to abide by those rules as well. And since whoever is being touched doesn't realize this whole 24 frame thing, they immediately get frozen. So it's not necessarily that he actively freezes them, it's that he enforces these set of rules. The subject can't respond, can't follow those rules, and they immediately freeze. So very, like, who thinks up of this? You know, it's a very cool power. And there's also the kind of the caveat that once you start the trace, this 1 second, that you can't deviate from it. Plus, you have to kind of follow the laws of physics, or sort of the trajectory, to a certain degree. Like you can't completely ignore the laws of physics as like if you're standing on one side of a window, you can't just phase through the window, it makes it sound like, or you can't, be on one side of the country even if you can see the other side. Like if you're looking really far away, you can't just end up on that, like a mile away. You have to kind of, and this is kind of where it gets a little bit wishy-washy, right? Like Akutami Sensei described it as long as it's not ignored excessively, and that's kind of where it gets a little bit gray. But we've seen Naobito use it where he kind of sets himself into the air, and that's not excessive, right? Obviously a normal human being wouldn't be able to do that, but at the same time, it's not like you're not necessarily ignoring the laws of physics or momentum or trajectory, so to speak. So again, kind of confusing, but I think it definitely makes sense. Just give it a couple more reads and hopefully I cleared it up a little bit for you. But obviously Naobito is not 100 right now, so even Naobito, Jogo just boom. Just remember we saw these kind of little volcano things when he fought against Gojo as well, and Gojo was able to use his, technique, and all of a sudden just things get super real here. We see this hand come up against Jogo. Boom, next page, it's Sukuna. And of course we left off with Itadori kind of, out of commission, and then Nanako and Mimiko supposedly giving him, feeding him the finger. So, we're always in the back of our head, it's like, what's going on there? But it was just kind of a mirage, right? Just as Jogo says here, no, it's just a finger that was released, so to speak. And then, Jogo prioritizes that, and then he finds the three, Nanako, Mimiko, and Yuji here, which can see the tattoos starting to form. So on his way to Sukuna. And Jogo, the thing that's on his mind is he asks, how many fingers did you feed him? And you're like, well, what does that matter? But we obviously get the little flashback later on when he's talking to Fake Geto. But before that, we also see Nanako with her phone out, right? So Perhaps that has something to do with her power. We see Jogo again, number 4, just boom against those two as well. But I have a feeling that they're not quite out of commission yet. Maybe they snapped a selfie, and then it's like a protective barrier or something like that. I don't know. But then we do kind of get this little flashback here on page 20. Where Fate Geto is explaining to Jogo that, and this is a very important point here, because, you know, at the beginning of the series we kind of thought that maybe there was this sort of threshold, like once he gets past 11 fingers or 12 fingers consumed, maybe that Itadori just starts to lose control. But apparently that's not necessarily it, which is very, very interesting. And it's more that the rate at which he takes it in is the important factor. So sure enough, we have this explanation here, and then on page 21, so 10 fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? So 10 fingers. That would mean, if I'm not mistaken, that if Jogo follows through with feeding Itadori these 10 fingers, that should be 15 consumed, if I'm not mistaken. Right, the very first one that he ate. There is a second one with Gojo, third one with Megumi, 4. Yeah, 15. It should be 15. Yeah, should be. But anyways, either way, Jogo trying to, you remember Jogo's in the camp of trying to revive Sukuna ASAP, Mahito, and Mahito's kind of in the camp now where he's like, we don't need Sukuna anymore. So people have their different objectives right now, and just the same way that Jogo got sort of, you know, attracted to the finger being fed, maybe Mahito will come as well. Who knows? Anyways, that's where we leave off chapter 111. So, whew, things are getting very, very real now. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought. What do you think's going on? Is Sukuna indeed going to be revived? Oh man, that'd be crazy. Sooner than perhaps we thought. But remember, the conditions were to seal Gojo, and then if Sukuna kind of gets revived, well, technically it was to get Sukuna on the side of the cursed spirits, right? So, but definitely reviving him, even temporarily, would be one step. So, ooh. Anyways, that was chapter 111. Thank you very much for coming by again. Appreciate it if you take a moment to spread that positive juju with a like and a comment. Very much appreciated if you if you choose to do so. Thanks very much. But with that, we will see you in chapter 112. Hey, you know how we do. Mata yoroshiku. See you next video.